All right, let's dive right in, shall we? Today we are unpacking a seriously captivating century-old metaphor about nature, existence, and literally everything around us. The universe as an infinitely nested book. It's a beautifully profound idea that tries to make sense of the sheer, massive density of information we see everywhere, framing the cosmos in a way that, as you'll see, gets remarkably close to modern biological science.
Section 1. Can the universe be a book? The metaphor of the universe. To kick off our journey from the absolute cosmic scale all the way down to the microscopic, we need to start with an impossible thought experiment. I want you to really visualize this for a second. Imagine a book, but not just any book. Imagine a book where every single word hides another entirely different book inside of it. And it doesn't stop there. Every single letter of those words conceals a meticulously crafted poem. So, you open a massive volume, zoom in on a single word, and boom, that word expands into a new book with its own chapters and pages. Based on this mind-bending premise, the source asks a very direct question. Is it possible for such a masterpiece to emerge without an author? Could this level of infinite layered complexity somehow just assemble itself by pure chance? Well, the source material tackles this question head-on, asserting that this level of infinite nested complexity, mathematically and logically, demands an ultimate creator. A book so intricately layered absolutely must be the work of limitless power and knowledge. The whole argument here is rooted in the idea of intentionality. When we encounter highly organized, layered information in our daily lives, our logical deduction is that a mind composed it. So the text argues that a universe operating on this level of deep, nested data cannot possibly be an accident.
Moving on to part 2, the great tree hidden in the seed, zooming in on nature's metaphor. Now, abstract philosophy is great and all, but what's really fascinating here is how the author brings this massive concept right down to earth. Literally, they map this conceptual metaphor directly onto the physical world. The earth itself is the grand page we're reading. A tree growing out of that earth is a single word on the page. The fruit on that tree represents an individual letter, and that tiny seed inside the fruit, that's just a dot of ink. By structuring it this way, we can suddenly grasp the immense scale of the universe's complexity just by looking at familiar, everyday objects. Think of this exactly like a camera lens, zooming all the way in from a satellite view in space. We pull our focus from the vast, sprawling landscape of the Earth, down to a single tree, into its fruit, and finally right down to the microscopic boundaries of a single seed. The text is actively guiding our attention away from the macro structure of the world, forcing us to zero in on the absolute smallest divisible unit of this biological system. So the crucial takeaway here is that this tiny, seemingly totally insignificant dot actually contains the complete blueprint for something incredibly vast. Within this tiny, practically invisible dot hides the entire architectural plan of a massive tree. The source emphasizes that the seed isn't just a lifeless speck of matter. No way. It's packed to the brim with organized, sequential instructions. Every future branch, the exact shape of the leaves, the specific chemical composition of the future fruit, it's all essentially pre-written and folded up tight inside that microscopic dot.
Which brings us to part 3, the meeting of science and metaphor, a surprising modern validation.
This is where things get really fascinating, because this poetic philosophy unexpectedly collides with modern science. Think about DNA for a second, a microscopic molecule that codes the entire physical structure and biological blueprint of a living organism. What modern science calls a genetic blueprint or DNA code is functionally identical to what this philosophical text called a program or plan hidden in a dot. Science has essentially confirmed the physical existence of this highly complex, nested book of information inside living cells. When you look at these two concepts side by side, it reveals a pretty incredible synthesis. On one side, we have Badiou-Zimon's 100-year-old metaphor of a tiny seed holding the entire program of a tree. On the other side, we have modern genetic science demonstrating exactly how a microscopic DNA molecule codes an organism structure. The text was actually utilizing the vocabulary of data, words like programs and books, long before anyone even discovered the DNA double helix. It just goes to show how deep deductive reasoning about nature's complexity led to a conclusion that biological science would later physically map out in a laboratory. And that leads us to our final section, part 4. What is written in the clear book, The Cosmic Perspective? Finally, the source text pulls us all the way back out from that microscopic genetic level to a grand, overarching theological perspective. We move from the physical reality we just explored right back to the metaphysical framework that started our journey.
The text grounds its entire metaphor in this specific Quranic verse. There is not a grain in the darkness of the earth, nor anything fresh or dry, but is written in a clear record. The source uses this theological anchor to wrap up its argument. Basically, the physical blueprints we see in seeds and DNA are presented as tangible reflections of a larger divine record. It frames the microscopic data hidden in a single seed as physical proof of a limitless author overseeing the entire cosmos.
So, to wrap things up, the source leaves us with this direct, completely provocative challenge. Have you ever looked at a simple seed or a cell and just been amazed by the sheer magnitude of information inside it? It's wild to think about. The next time you hold a tiny seed in your hand or just look at a tree in your neighborhood, consider the immense, invisible library of data operating just out of sight. It completely transforms how we view the simplest, most everyday elements of nature, doesn't it?